What if Arctozolt was in Gen 1 OU? Stat Blizzball. That's all I'm really gonna say. This thing basically hits as hard as Jinx with its Stat Blizzard, but you're trading a whopping 5 in base special attack for Stab Thunderbolt. So it's hitting as hard as... I actually don't know if there's anything in... Oh, wait, yes I do. Magneton. Yeah, this thing is basically hitting a little bit weaker, but basically as strong as both Jinx and Magneton with Stab. And as we all know, I'm pretty sure Magneton is the second strongest base Thunderbolt in RBY. So that's already just pretty good. But then you have Electric Ice just being a genuinely good defensive typing in Gen 1. Because Ice, pretty good. Blizzard, Ice Beam, you see those a lot. So resisting those and having an immunity to freeze, that's great. But then you resist Thunderbolt as well. And while it's not a big deal, resisting or just being flat out immune to the 10% chance of getting paralyzed with Thunderbolt, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but hey, sometimes it becomes relevant. I'm sure everyone has at least one game, whether you lost it or won it, but you probably got hit with a Thunderbolt or hit a Thunderbolt and then got something paralyzed. That's just how it works. And luckily for Arctozolt, it has good defensive stats too. Base 90 HP and defense, that's pretty good. Base 80 special defense, that's also just really good. Especially since you're resisting 2 of the 3 most common special attacks in the game. The only one you're not resisting is Psychic, but luckily you have Thunder Wave. So the Psychic types really don't like that. And while I don't have it on the screen, this thing has 100 attack and does have both Body Slam and Hyper Beam. So those are just great for mixed attacking options. In fact, without Body Slam and Hyper Beam, you don't really have much you can do against Chansey. But at the same time, let's say it's Bolt Beam Chansey, you resist both of its attacks, so it's pretty... I'd say pretty even, regardless of what set you use. Now here is where Arctozolt kind of struggles. Normally, I'm pretty generous when it comes to speed in RBY for 2 reasons. One being that, with how strong Paralysis is, I honestly feel like speed is less important in Gen 1 than it is in any other generation. The only exception could maybe be Gen 2, but even in Gen 2, things are, using rest a lot, so things are getting rid of the Paralysis, so I'm pretty sure even in Gen 2, speed is more important than it is in RBY. And the other reason I'm pretty generous is because look at some of the best Pokemon in the format. Rhydon is only at 45 speed, Slowbro and Snorlax, the second best Pokemon, are 30, and Exeggutor might be the third, and it's at 55. And that's the exact same speed Arctozolt is. However, I just feel like for Arctozolt, it really hates it. I mean, look at its attacking moves. With Blizzard and Thunderbolt, you just want to demolish things with Stab. But with 55 speed, most of the things in this tier are going to hit you first. And while you are faster than Snorlax, its bulk and access to Earthquake doesn't really help you. So you don't really take too much advantage of it there. Slowbro, yeah, it's part of the reason it's a free win against you. But still, I'm not even sure how good Slowbro would even be in a meta with Arctozolt in it. And Speak Time with Exeggutor is annoying, since Exeggutor has both Psychic for special drops and Explosion. So really, there's not really any good benefits to your speed outside of Slowbro and Rhydon exactly. And it really sucks. Granted, you can use this thing on, like teams where late game, you have everything paralyzed, you go up against that. And it's still good. Like, don't get me wrong, I do not think this is a underused Pokemon. I'm very confident that this thing is staying in OU. But man, it sucks that you kind of have to go for rest, since you do end up having to tank a lot of hits inevitably. Granted, what you could do is you could replace Thunder Wave and Rest with Body Slam and Hyper Beam. That way you're going on all-out offense and just specifically save it for the late game, which is pretty good. But since it does, resist so many attacks in RBY, and since it already has pretty good defensive stats, I do think Rest is very usable. Although the big reason why it isn't free is because of Earthquake exactly. Being weak to Earthquake really sucks, but it's a good thing that you have Ice Coverage to be super effective against them every turn. Doesn't really help against Snorlax. But on the bright side, your stabs and just Thunder Wave are enough to really scare Tauros. So overall, it's a pretty good Pokemon. And probably the best out of the other fossils. Like I said, I'm 90% sure that their signatures don't work. So Dragovish with Fish's Rend probably isn't anything special. Which is a shame, since Dragovish is a physical attacker. So it would kind of need Fish's Rend to do a lot of damage in order to be usable, since it would be special. So Dragovish isn't cooking. I forget what the other two are called, but I seriously doubt that the Electric Dragon is doing anything special. And the Ice Water has to compete with the Lapras and Cloyster. So yeah, good luck with that, buddy. But let's get back to Arctozolt. And the best way to do that is by going right into the replays. Starting with the boy himself, we got Tauros. Thankfully, because of your tankiness, our Earthquake is only a 3-hit KO, which is good. And Blizzard, I think it's a 2-hit with damage ranges, but yeah, crits are pretty, annoying. If you wanted to, you could definitely put this in good matchups, since Tauros being 2-shot or, being paralyzed, pretty scary. But in terms of 1v1, I think it could go either way. Can't really say that for Snorlax, though. Snorlax's Earthquake, it's kind of weird how just a little bit of a change in attack makes it a 2-hit KO, but that's sort of only a big deal. Arctozolt just can't really damage it in time. Especially since with 55 speed, it's not like you can rely on crits like you can with Tauros or Jolteon. Now for Chansey, I guess something else you can do could be, Blizzbolt, Thunder Wave, Hyper Beam. But this one really just depends on the movesets. If it's Bolt Beam, Arctozolt probably wins the War of Attrition, or the bare minimum could be Walls Chansey. If it has Body Slam and Hyper Beam, it's good whatever. But if it's just Blizzbolt with Thunder Wave and Rest, I definitely think there's a possibility that you can... Or actually, no, I don't think you can outstall Chansey at that point, because Blizzard only has 8 power points. Yeah, it really just depends on the moveset. Either way, both can do a good job stalling out each other. But I think Arctozolt is a little bit better, but a lot of that might just be because, it's typing, and more importantly, it's actually faster than Chansey. Now for Zam, a pretty weird one, but I think I would call this a could go either way. Both can paralyze each other, so at the end of the day, that's the real thing that matters, but having Stab Blizzard definitely helps. Zam has high special, so it's not like Zam is taking a lot of damage, but with paralysis, it can work out. And if you have Body Slam and Hyper Beam, it can be even better. But at the same time, those psychics, they can hurt, and if you get a special drop, it might be game over. Now, Cloyster. This one's kind of interesting. Obviously, you resist Blizzard, but even though you look like a dragon type, you don't resist Clamp. So it's really just a matter of if Cloyster can always hit or not. Because if it misses once, you're either going for Thunderbolt or more likely Thunder Wave. And if Cloyster's slower, then it's just game over at that point. But other times you can just clamp it to death. So could go either way. Now for Executor, like I said, the speed tie is incredibly annoying. But at the very least, you're only taking a 3-hit KO from, Psychic. But still, you don't feel super comfortable. You'd much rather wait until it's paralyzed. But at the same time, Executor wouldn't risk dealing with you unless it absolutely has to. Now for Gengar. This one, honestly, you might think it's good because you resist Thunderbolt. But inevitably, I'm pretty sure Gengar is going to have either Psychic or Nightshade. If it's Nightshade, you can probably win pretty comfortably. But Psychic has the potential to be annoying. But does that really matter? Because if you paralyze the Gengar, it's basically good as dead. Alright, let's keep moving. And this time we have Jolteon. Resisting Thunderbolt is really good. But you know what's kind of funny? The fact that Double Kick is probably the best thing you can do. Especially if you get crits. But you're going to see here that Arctozolt is pretty tanky. So even with, like, I guess you can technically call that 4 crits in a row. It's not enough. Now, granted, 6 critical double kicks in a row, that would have been enough. But the fact you need all of that in order to kill this thing, even with the high crit rate, Arctozolt can probably outlast. But because of the nature of paralysis and how great of a chance Jolteon has to crit, I honestly think I'm putting this in good matchup and not great. It's kind of weird. But whatever, I'm sure Zapdos will do better, right? Next up we have Jinx, and I don't know if this one really depends if you have Body Slam or not. Because Stab Thunderbolt is still doing pretty decent damage. Although, pretty obviously, physical moves would be better. Although, maybe not enough. That's kind of awkward, like, surviving that. And the crit mattered. I think I forgot to say that. But yeah, it just could go either way. Not sure what else you really want me to say there. Alright. Next off is Rhydon. Will Rhydon survive Blizzard? Of course not. Why would you think it would survive that? You're silly. You're just a silly Billy. Okay, let's keep going. And for Slowbro, I think, even though Slowbro's gonna go for Thunder Wave, I think you're better off just going for Thunderbolt straight up. You could get lucky with, what's it called? A crit. But I think it's more so the fact that going for it immediately means Slowbro kind of has to go for Amnesia. And taking 2 Thunderbolts kind of means that you're just kind of forced to keep going for rest. And even though 55 isn't the best for a crit rate, it's certainly enough to where Arctozolt can very comfortably keep fishing for crits, which it can do safely because Slowbro is never in a state where you can just keep going for Amnesias. The only chance you got is if Arctozolt doesn't move. So overall, I think a pretty great matchup, and one where Slowbro, I guess it could win with abysmal paralysis luck, but most likely that ain't gonna happen. By the way, can we talk about how Arctozolt resists Blizzbolt Starmie, which is like the most common Starmie set? The replay you're gonna see here is gonna be one with Psychic, but that's not even always guaranteed. Being able to wall in the most common Starmie set is honestly kind of huge. And I think Starmie not even being able to 2-shot with Psychic, that is just kind of insane. And did it need, I forget if it had a crit or not. Actually, I don't care. Let's just keep going. The point is, Starmie, having both Blizzard and Thunderbolt be what's good on it is kind of crazy. And with the Victory Bell, we'll give Victory Bell some credit. It doesn't get completely O-code. So paralysis from Stun Spore, or, you know, doing decent chip with Razor Leaf, it's something, but not enough to win in this particular replay. But looking back at the footage, I might have to put this in could go either way. But then again, Stun Spore isn't always on Victory Bell. You'd probably rather go for Sweet Powder, and obviously I make these replays with the implication that Sweep Claws is an effect. So I think I'll keep Victory Bell in the tier that it's in. But just know, Astrid, because I know you're watching this, I am kind of considering putting Victory Bell in could go either way. Now for Zapdos, this one I'm not considering putting in could go either way. You resist both Drill Peck and Thunderbolt, and you have good attacking stats. And good defense stats, which is pretty good. I will say though, even though you resist both the Zapdos' stabs, this does not make you a replacement for Rhydon, because, one, Rhydon has a full-on immunity, which already makes it easier and gives you less chip damage, but more importantly, Rhydon has an immunity to Thunder Wave, which is more useful in general than what Arctozolt has to offer. Although, you probably wouldn't use them on the same team. Or maybe you could. I can kind of see a division. Now, I almost went into it. But normally, with Zapdos, that's where I end the replays. But since this is a Patreon-requested video by Patreon supporter Zach and Theus, I added 3 more Pokemon that I think will be interesting to talk about. The first one is Articuno, which would be the main competitor for, a powerful Blizzard spammer. And even though Articuno's been kind of on the rise as of late, unfortunately for the Bluebird, Arctozolt resisting your stab is just kind of... Yeah, that's really unfortunate. And then it can hit back with super effective Thunderbolts. That's a shame. Now, these next 2 I actually think will be more popular with Arctozolt in the format, because typical checks, things like Starmie or Chansey, don't really work out, since for the most part, Ice Electric is a very unique defensive typing in RBY. But there's one thing I think would take advantage of it, and that's Fire. So for this first replay, we have Moltres with a powerful Fire Blast, which would absolutely melt Arctozolt. But at the same time, if you miss, unfortunately Blizzard and Thunderbolt are going to do a lot of damage. I went for, what's it called, Thunderbolt there, and that's mostly because I sometimes forget Fire doesn't resist Ice in RBY. But considering both are 2 shots, I don't think it matters too much. Now, what does matter is the fact that Moltres had an Oko there. It's weak to both stabs, but something that Arctozolt I just don't think can try to play around with. And Moltres comes out, it has to switch. Now, here is the other Fire type that's used in RBY sometimes, and that's Flareon. Without the flying typing, you're much more comfortable actually being in this fight. Although I will say, you should probably go for a Fire Spin first, put Arctozolt in range. But still, the fact that with your high special you can afford to only get 3-hit KO'd by Stab Blizzard, I think that's honestly kind of impressive. So good on Flareon. Not enough to be OU or even be put in like D rank, but I can respect it. I can definitely respect it. Overall, here's the tier list. I think this is the first one I did in a while where everything is just kind of solid, There's a lot of Pokemon in good and great matchups, and also like a few in bad. But for the most part, it's just, yeah, it has its strengths, has its weaknesses. It would be kept in check, and it doesn't do anything particularly busted, but does have very unique traits that make it worth using. What do you think? Do you think Arctozolt would be pretty good? Do you want to see more videos like this? Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. I try to upload these videos daily. I'd really appreciate your support. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.